how do you create a successful business and a fulfilling life? In 2020, after leaving the corporate world once and for all, I founded my digital agency that replaced a six-figure income within just the first few months. Since then, I've coached thousands of entrepreneurs across the globe to do the same. Now I'm on a mission to teach others how an exceptional life is not only possible, but very achievable through entrepreneurship. Join me in this podcast as I interview industry experts to learn the ins and outs, the do's and don'ts of what it takes to become a great business owner, and share some of the lessons I've learned along the way as well. Thank you for joining me, and let's dive in.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good.
Sorry, I'm just turning on my camera.
You're good.
Okay, cool.
You're good.
Adjust that so the top of my head is there.
Nice. How was your weekend?
It was good. Yeah.
Good.
Just hanging out with my son pretty much all weekend. That was it. So
Yeah, nice.
yeah, and wife, but we went to the zoo and stuff, so it was good.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's cool. How old is your son?
He's 2.
2? Aw,
Yeah.
that's fun. That's such a
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure what it is about being a parent, but no matter what age I tell people he is, they're always like, that's such a fun age.
Would have said 3. I would have said like, oh, that's rough, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's it. Yeah, I guess. Yeah. But the terrible twos are a real thing. I think he's kind of slowly getting out of it because he's like able to communicate a little bit more, but
Yeah,
he's a trip. I saw that. Are you guys expecting?
yes.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's funny because I've never been on this side of a pregnancy before. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I've never, this sounds weird, but this is what I keep saying because it's like all I can relate it to. But like, I've never been the dad. And it's
okay. Gotcha. So you guys already have a kid, right?
we do. Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
I had our little boy. He's 3. He's 3.5.
Cool.
And that's why I said, dude, 3 is crazy. He's wild. but it's so much fun though.
It's no joke. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's super fun. But yeah, I was a one and done for sure. I don't think I'll ever get pregnant again. But
yeah, it's a hard thing to sell somebody on doing twice. So
yeah,
it doesn't necessarily, it's not the kind of thing that sells itself.
yeah.
So
Yeah, adoption looks really great, honestly.
yeah.
It's
There are
fun.
times where we're like, oh, do we want to like have a second, or do we want to just do we want to buy a second? I don't know.
Buy a second.
Yeah. How much does the second cost? All right. Like, what's the price? Let's weigh our options here.
Honestly. Yeah, well, and like, yeah, I don't know. I honestly though, like all of that being said, I know I'm like joking about it and stuff, but I love being a parent. I think that it's honestly the thing that has pushed me the most in business ownership and being an entrepreneur and doing more things, you know. So yeah.
No, I haven't. I think just since I've been a dad, since I figured out that we were pregnant with our first kid, whatever.
Yeah.
2 years and 9 months ago, because he just turned 2.
Nice.
I've experienced more growth in my life, in professionally, in like my relationship with my wife, and like spiritually, every single way that I could experience growth. I've experienced way more growth in this like 2.5 years than I have combined in the entire, whatever it is. How old am I? 23 years before that, 23 and a half years.
Yeah,
So
that's crazy.
There is something to be said that when you have someone that's completely reliant on you experiencing success, that that definitely propels you to and convinces you to go a lot harder in the go hard in the paint, as they say. So yeah,
I think so too. This is funny because like usually I start the podcast off like formally, right, or like officially, but this is a really topic, and if you don't mind, we can just kind of like segue into it. Sure. But why do you think that is though? Like being a parent, being a business owner, entrepreneur, why do you think that it pushes us more? And I have my own thoughts, but I want to hear what yours are.
Yeah. So I think like, I don't know how you grew up, but I grew up with 2 absolutely freaking top shelf parents. Like I grew up with 2 pretty incredible examples of a lot of different things in my life. Obviously my parents are imperfect, and I I recognize that they have faults, but I also know that I was like ridiculously privileged in the way that I grew up, even though we didn't grow up with a ton. And my parents are successful in their own rights now, like just looking from the outside looking in, they're wildly successful in what they do. But like growing up, we just didn't have a lot. Like my mom's Mexican, so we were allowed to say this, but we always used to say that we're eating like poor Mexicans, and my mom would make tortillas and we would have beans and rice for every meal. I didn't grow up with a ton, and so my parents' goal, my dad always tells me this, that he's just like, if you end up more successful than me, if you end up with more than I had, then I'm a successful parent. And I think that is what it is. Like before I had a kid, I would spend time doing things that maybe didn't matter a ton in the long run, things that I enjoyed doing and things that are important. But now that I have a kid, I'm like, I just want this guy, this little person that I'm in charge of, to have 1,000 times more than what I had. And I want his kids to have 1,000 times more than what he has. And like, it's this like leveling up. Like if your family, if everything's going correctly, I feel like in your family tree or whatever, then I feel like the latter generation should be better than the last, and it should be continually climbing. So it's this like, obviously he's going to have his own goals, but I have so many goals in my mind for him that I know I need to like scale back a little bit, but I'm like, I feel like it pushes you to be like, okay, now I'm in the parental position. How can I make it so that my kids have it better than I did and have more opportunities than I did and are 1,000 times better than I am?
Right.
Long answer, but
yeah. No, I love that. I think, that's how I feel too. And I think that because of that feeling of wanting to just provide a better life in all aspects, for me at least, that feeling or that drive surpasses any, for the most part, I would say, any ego that would previously get in the way of stopping me from doing things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like before I'd be like, oh, I'm scared. Like it would make me look dumb if I tried to do this, or if I like
totally
vent, or if I try to like whatever. But having a kid, I'm like, dude, I don't care. My 3-year-old like bullies me enough. Like,
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. But
no, it's true. They bully the crap out of you. Yeah. Yeah.
But like, it doesn't matter on the same level. And I don't know, have you experienced that, like becoming a parent, that the things that maybe held you back before, maybe scared you before, just don't even matter anymore?
Totally. So there's like a lot of things that like I'm really good at. I definitely have undiagnosed ADHD. So I get pulled in a lot of different directions, not by others, but by myself. So I'm like, there's a version of me over here who wants to go do this, and there's a version of me over here who wants to go do this, and there's like 50 of them, and I have to follow one of them at any given time, and 5 minutes later I'll switch and go to the other one. So I always have these things that I'm like, I really want to do this. I really want to start a podcast. I really want to make, business content online. I really want to start this business. I want to, pursue this goal. And I just like, I used to kind of psych myself out and be like, oh no, I'll look like an idiot if I start, making content on Instagram, and like, oh, I'll look like an idiot if I like start a podcast, and people will think that I'm, I definitely like all these voices in my mind being like, oh, this is how that's going to be perceived, but I just like don't care anymore. I still do way too much and more than I should do, but I don't really care anymore what people think, because I just know I've accepted that these are the best things for my future, and these are the best things that are going to build an incredible life for my family. So I just like I'm like, whatever, I don't care what people think. And the people that are judging me aren't the people that are rooting for me anyways. So I'm like, whatever, they can root against me or be neutral or do whatever the crap they want. I really don't care. So yeah,
I don't remember where I heard it, but early on, it was like in 2020 when I heard this quote, and I remind myself of it a lot when I'm feeling like that, maybe imposter syndrome or something, right?
Sure.
That anyone that is doing more than you would never like say negative words or like belittle you or make comments about what you're doing because they've been there and they understand what it takes to push and like to build that type of business or to build that type of success.
Yeah.
So that's something that I remind myself of, like, oh yeah. Like, you know, anyone that is maybe giving me negative feedback doesn't matter anyways.
Sure.
So yeah, that's cool. Okay. So this was an unorthodox way to start the podcast episode, but
yeah,
cool though. I love that we can connect on the topic of parenting as an entrepreneur.
yeah.
Tell our listeners, just so that, you know, everybody knows who it is that we're speaking with. I know
Sure.
that, and I guess as a little bit of context here. So Mike Wolfe, you and I met at an event last week.
Yeah.
For Dalton Jensen's in-person live podcast event, which was super cool.
Yeah.
Really cool to be there. And funny enough, found out that we both knew Dalton from podcasting, from doing episodes with him prior, which is so fun. I feel like that's become like the new best way of networking.
It definitely, yeah, that's true. It has.
Yeah. So you're involved with a lot of different, your entrepreneurial journey is quite further than, I would say, probably 99% of people, especially at your age.
Maybe.
For sure. Yeah. So tell our listeners, tell everyone here, what it is that you're involved with the agency, with your other companies.
Yeah. So right out of college, basically, I just for some like context of kind of how I got into it, and I'll be quick, but I got out of college. I found a job with Rockstar Energy, the energy drink company. And I was their like regional marketing coordinator, which meant it was kind of a mix of like traditional marketing and like sampling product. And that was dope because I was like, why not? I like being outside. I generally like the product. I don't really anymore, but I became pretty like anxious and depressed very quickly with that job, because there was a lot of oversight. They're like always on your butt. Like, what are you doing? Where are you? How are you? And all those are like reasonable questions, but they took it to this other level that it was like a super micromanaging, and I just like couldn't function in that environment. So I was there for 2 months, but when I had about a week left in the job, I had a meeting with a guy at this little business. He just owned a little group of businesses, and they ranged from e-commerce brands to like flower shops. It was random. But he hired me to start doing social media for him, and kind of took a little bit of a chance on me and gave me an opportunity. And so I left Rockstar. I did not stay there for very long. Corporate America like ate me up and spit me out really quick because I just like couldn't do it. So I did marketing for him, and while I was doing it, I realized that I actually really enjoyed the content side of things. I enjoyed organic kind of social media growth. And I started picking up clients doing that kind of freelance, and eventually basically just accidentally started my own marketing agency. And we focus on organic marketing, but we also do some like SMS and email. And so that's grown kind of just by itself organically, ironically, over the last 3-4 years now. And before I got that job, actually, I had started an eyewear company. So we do sea goggles and sunglasses, and that's kind of like my passion project. So I have my marketing agency, my eyewear company, a couple other kind of side projects that aren't necessarily old enough to talk about them yet because I don't want to jinx it, right? But I just like became a co-owner of a stroopwafel company. Oh, as cool. Random as that is. So if you know what a stroopwafel is, it's just like a circular cookie. So random, but that's kind of started to take over a little bit of my time. And then I have like I do content creation, and that's not huge. You can find me at Wolfe with an E, Michael T, on Instagram and on TikTok and stuff. But I kind of just started doing that, and then I just started a podcast.
Nice.
So I have all those things happening.
Yeah. And that's actually what we were talking about last week when we started chatting, is the podcast that you're starting, which sounds super cool, doing episodes about really unique business stories. And
yeah,
of it, like, did that really happen?
Yeah. Yep. That's it. Yeah. You remembered.
Yeah, that's
Thank
cool.
you. Yeah. So that launches on Wednesday. And then my other
Okay.
podcast launches on next Monday. And I'll just be interviewing kind of my peers basically in the outdoor space.
Mhm.
So founders of outdoor companies. I talk to them a lot, and I actually just like their stories are super inspirational, and
Mhm.
I kind of relate to them a lot. So it's a podcast kind of focused on helping them tell their entrepreneurial story. And yeah.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I think that I've noticed in my journey of entrepreneurship,
Yeah.
and watching other entrepreneurs and their habits and the things that they do. And, I don't know, you're probably like that too, or it's like, you kind of just watch to see like, okay, what are other people doing? How can I improve? How can I improve? Right. One of the that I notice is that successful people watch the, I guess, like the journey, like the milestone journeys of other successful entrepreneurs. And so I've always been really intrigued, and it's cool that you're starting a podcast around that exact thing, like the story of the entrepreneurial journey, especially for those in the outdoor space. So that's cool. Switching topics just a little bit here, because I think that this is one that it's very natural for us to speak about, is time management.
Yeah.
As a busy entrepreneur, as a parent, as just a human being in the digital crazy world that we're living in.
Yeah. Hope you're not about to ask me for advice on this.
Well, I just want to know, what has your experience been, especially with owning businesses through the pandemic? Because I don't know about you, but I mean, for every single one of us, that was not something that anyone was expecting. We all went through different things with that, but especially as a business owner through that time, I know for me, I got in different routines with having not as much of an expectation to be in person or to be at events or to be, doing these things, and more time to be working on the business, if you will, instead of, in the business. So what was your experience, and how has that transition been, in your opinion?
Yeah, so I would say pre-pandemic, I was horrible at managing my time. It was just very random. I wasn't very task oriented, because during that time, I had jobs and clients where I maybe had to be a little bit more in office and stuff. And then once the pandemic happened, there was just this like sense of freedom that I had that kind of allowed me to start like narrowing down like my time and being like, okay, now I'm gonna, but then I had a kid. So so like right at the beginning of during the pandemic, we had our son, and it was just like, I had no time management because my time was being managed by an infant. So it has actually just been kind of recently, not to necessarily skip over the COVID thing, because I just wasn't very good at managing my time during COVID. We saw a lot of growth in the business during COVID, no doubt. It was awesome, but I still kind of sucked at managing my time. But it's been actually recently, when we put my son in daycare, that I've been like, okay, cool. I can like schedule my days out, and I can have like specific blocks of time for working on this project and this project. And I can go to meetings, and I can go to networking events, and, I can, be in my business during the day. And then once my son comes home, I can just be a dad. And that's been a huge blessing. Obviously I still have to get stuff done sometimes at night. Sometimes tasks come up, or I need to take a late meeting or something like that. But for the most part, I can like just be a dad at night, which is super awesome. And I found that like that step in my life has had a lot more effect on the positive effect on my time management than COVID, because COVID was just complete madness for me.
Right.
we bought a house right when COVID happened, and then had a kid. Okay. And then like, it was Yeah, it was a crap show. And then like if you live in Utah, we had like within the space of a month, we had like COVID was happening, everyone was locked in. Um, then right after that, we had this like giant earthquake.
Right.
And then we moved into our house. And the day we moved into our house, we had a second earthquake that was actually pretty big as well. And
Right.
then a week later, we had this like giant windstorm that like knocked over a bunch of trees. Like it was madness. And then a couple months later, we figured out we were pregnant. And I was like, okay, well, I don't. And I guess that was during the fall. It was the spring that we moved in. It was kind of during the fall that we figured out we were pregnant. But yeah, COVID was a blessing and a curse, but it definitely, I think I thrived in the COVID environment because I am chaotic by nature. Just like here and there, we talked about ADHD, but I think maybe it's a point to say that people with ADHD, undiagnosed ADHD, might have thrived in COVID for a reason. Because
I think that's very true.
yeah. What about you? What was
Yeah.
was it a huge change for you, or?
Well, it was okay.
Not to say you have ADHD, but I don't know.
I very much do. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do for sure. In fact, right here on my desk is my little visual timer so that I can see how much time is happening, or else
Oh, that's awesome.
completely time and I have
I need to do one of those.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's on Amazon. It's the best thing ever.
Link. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, seriously. But for me during the pandemic, it was, so I had just had my little boy in January. The pandemic hit in March.
Madness.
And yeah, and it was the same time frame that I had just decided to start an agency.
Cool.
So, going to that. But I think for the agency world, and you probably saw this quite a bit, it was a great time because every single business was pivoting to try to get online and, do things better online. So it was a really great time for that. But in terms of the schedule, environment shift, right? Everything with that was crazy. And I'm curious what your thoughts are on this, and I'll talk a little bit about this, but I'm curious what your thoughts are on work-life balance, or if you believe that is something that we should even strive for. And here's my thoughts, like through all of that, through the last 3 years of running an agency, scaling it, and also I do business coaching and help entrepreneurs create their own agencies as well. And through all of that, I am very much the same way. I relate with you a lot, that like I thrive in chaos. Right?
Yeah.
Right. In fact, when things like when I'm not feeling pressure for like either a deadline or trying to hit a big milestone with the company or doing something like that, it doesn't feel right. Right. Like gotta be pushing.
I feel that.
But in terms of like when I first started out, I had this from the corporate days, had this ingrained in my head of like work-life balance. Like it has to be this perfect, balance, or this, I don't know, this dance between the two. Right. But as an entrepreneur, you don't really have work, in my opinion, can't really have work-life balance because your work is at home. Your work is your life. It's literally, it's literally how you're surviving. And so for me, I would say that it has been a lot of trial and error, just testing different things out and really figuring out different routines for how to, instead of having balance, having harmony between the two.
Yeah. So I'm a pretty like firm believer, I guess, in that like my family comes first in absolutely everything.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if and obviously sometimes I have to do things during family time, and that sucks, and I don't love that. I always feel a lot of guilt for it, but it happens, and I'm a business owner. I kind of recognize that that's the path that I chose to take, and my wife understands that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's a good question, because I do feel really passionately that like my son and my wife come first no matter what, but that also I have all this like laundry list every day, every minute of every day. I just have like 1,000 things that I could be doing for the business, and the list never ends because every day it just like stacks up, and every day that I don't do something, it stacks up. So, well, I feel like it's for me, it's not necessarily a question of like, how do I balance my work and life? It's where are my priorities on this day, and where are my priorities during this block of time? Because like I said, now like from 8 to 4:30, that's when I can go hard with everything that I'm doing. And then after that, is this task that I need to do during that time more important than spending time with my son, or more important than spending time with my wife? And so it has been this like, how do I balance my work and life? But I recognize that there will never be like this like perfect situation. But yeah, it's a little bit more about harmony, and like, is my wife happy? And is my son, am I giving my son the proper attention? And if both those things are true, I'm happy with, regardless of what the setup is, because it's always just kind of chaotic. So
yeah, I resonate with that for sure. Yeah, in fact, something that came to mind when you were saying that was something that I heard at the event that we were both at last week.
Sure.
We were listening to Mark Smith do, his interview with Dalton.
His middle name is America. That's freaking fantastic.
It's
seriously,
not really, is it?
It's his middle name is America, isn't it? Yeah, it's Mark America Smith.
Wait, but that's not like legally his middle name, is it?
I think it is.
No way.
Yeah, like his brand doesn't seem this like super patriotic thing. So I like looked it up, and it's Mark America.
Wow.
I'm sorry if it's not.
That is so funny.
I'm seriously considering it. So
yeah, I heard them say that, and I was like, oh, okay. So like Mark America in quotations Smith.
America Smith. I don't know. He doesn't seem like his brand is like overly patriotic, and not to say that he doesn't, love his country or whatever, but it doesn't seem like that's his niche. So I'm assuming
that's interesting.
Right? I think properly assuming that his middle name is actually America.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Well, I had a lot of respect for him, because to be honest, that event was the first time that I had heard of him or seen him speak or have been introduced to his platform. And I was super impressed. He has a very impressive background with business and what he's created up to this point. But I was actually more impressed with his perspective with his family, right? And as a provider, but also as just a spouse and as a parent. One thing that he said that really, really resonated with me hard was kind of what you said here as well. But he said, first priority, first and foremost, is living in a way where his wife and son never have to question or feel that they have to earn his love.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I when he said that, I like got chills, and I was like, yeah, that's the flex. Like that's, like that is where there's success. And I think, well, I'm curious your thoughts on this. So we've all heard, as entrepreneurs, we all hear the phrase, how you do one thing is how you do everything. Right?
Yeah.
What is your perspective on that? Because in terms of with your family, the way that you show up for your family versus everything else in your life.
Yeah. I think my personality is always like, I whole ass everything that I do. I think and I sometimes to a fault, but so I think most of the time it actually, works out in my favor, is that my parents always raised me to be very, like, if I'm going to do something, to just like do it and commit. And I do feel like that's played out well in my life, where I my family gets, 100% of me, and then, whatever else, I can kind of chop myself up and put it into different projects. But yeah, I completely, I think I agree with that phrase, is that, and it brings up a lot of other thoughts, but yeah, to answer your question, I think there's a lot of truth to that. How you do one thing is how you do everything.
Yeah.
And I think it's a lot of times it's how you do the most important things is how you do everything, because there are things that I do that I don't do perfectly. But I kind of on a random thought, I had this like moment of self-realization a couple weeks ago. I was playing basketball. It was a Wednesday night. I was just playing with, a pickup group of friends. And if you live in Utah, that's the thing that everyone does. So I had this moment of self-realization that I was like completely exhausted and like dead tired, and my legs couldn't move, right? Because we'd been playing for so long. But I was like, let's play another game. Like whatever, let's go. Like, and it was this realization where like, maybe I'm not this person with this incredible endurance, and maybe I'm not this person who can just like do everything, but maybe I just like don't know how to stop. And I think it gave me a lot of perspective for actually my entire life, where I was a pretty good distance runner. Whenever we did endurance tests and challenges or whatever, when I was trying out for a sport, or that like endurance test in gym class, if you remember that ridiculous thing, I would just like not stop. And the coach would have to like tell me to like, okay, we're done. Like I'm the only one left on the court, or I'm the only one left on the field. Like stop, because I'm going home kind of thing. Like class is over, stop running. And so I think that's translated into my life pretty nicely, where like sometimes I just like, I don't know where the boundary is. Like I just kind of keep going, and whenever I'm forced to stop, I'll stop. But I just like, I'm a little bit obsessive about the things that I do in my life, and I'm absolutely completely obsessed with my wife and my son, and with my mom and my siblings and stuff, but less so my siblings, but I do love them.
But family is important. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Yeah, that's cool. No, I feel the same way for sure. Well, and I guess two different things on this. First, so would you agree that it is more important to show up, even if it is, medium level of expertise, right? If it's good enough, is it more important to show up than it is to be perfect?
Absolutely. I've kind of noticed this while I'm like creating business content, where like I don't know everything. I still feel like every time I talk to somebody at a networking event like yourself, or I talk to Dalton, or I hear somebody speak at an event, I'm like, wow, this person knows so much more than I do about so many different things, right? But I do know some things, and I do feel like it is more important, especially in parenting, where like I don't freaking know what I'm doing ever, actually. Like there's very few times where I'm like, I got this, don't worry about it. And it's normally when I'm like playing basketball with him outside, or like something that I know how to do, or I'm playing football, or showing him a sport that I love, or something, or when I took him skiing this year, we put him on skis for the first year. And I do feel like it's important in a lot of ways to just like do, rather than than obviously if you're perfect at something, that's cool, and you can perform at a high level at that. But it's a lot more important to just like try and show up. And that translates a lot to business, where like I still don't, there's a lot of times where I'm like, I have no clue how to do this task. I'm not sure how to solve this problem. I'm not sure how to design this product. I'm not sure how to really like optimize this product page on our website. But like, I don't know, I'll try to do it. And if I don't know how to do it, I'll find somebody else to do it. But I'll take a whack at anything. And at least like show up and make an attempt. And if I'm really horrible at it, or if it's not my strength, then it's not my strength, and I find somebody else to do that. So not with parenting, obviously. When you're a parent, you just, that's like you can't just be like, hey, neighbor, or can I hire somebody in the Philippines to do this for me? How do I outsource this? And that's something that maybe doesn't translate from business to parenting, where like you just have to try and you have to do it and you have to figure it out and you have to fail and fail and fail and fail and fail over and over again. Until you figure it out. And then, and when you're first starting a business, that's 100%. That's like the same thing as parenting is you're going to suck at it and you're probably going to suck at it forever, but you're just going to have to figure it out and make it work. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
That's so true. Yeah. That's funny. Yeah. Probably don't outsource parenting, but
don't outsource parenting. If there's anything you take from this, do not hire somebody in Indonesia to do your parenting for you.
Write that down for this. No, but that is, I mean, that couldn't be more spot on though for starting out with a business. And I think that to bring this back around, what we were talking about at the beginning, where becoming a parent is such an incredible opportunity and such an incredible honor, in my opinion, because it does allow you Absolutely. A perspective to almost reprioritize the way that you, the way that you really look at the world. And more so for me, at least, it's been a way to reprioritize things that my ego would get in the way of beforehand that just now don't matter. Right. And I think that that's something, having the opportunity to work with a lot of different entrepreneurs on really a daily basis that are starting their own agencies and doing different things at different stages in their journey. And that's, I would say, one of the most common things is that you start, you have this adrenaline, this excitement when you're first starting out and you're like, oh, this is cool. This is going to be really awesome. And then something happens, whether it's, someone in your group or your sphere of influence, right, that says something and kind of like knocks you down, and you're like, oh, okay, maybe this isn't such a good idea. Or you get in your head and you overthink.
Or in parenting, your kid takes his knee and jumps on your face with it, kind of thing. Yeah.
Or that, or just honestly, like just life in general, right? Just things that come up. But I think that so often we hold ourselves back from taking steps forward just because we want it to be perfect. Oftentimes, right? We want it to be perfect. And we think, okay, when I get to this point, or when I'm able to show up this way, or when I'm able to learn enough about this, then I'll take action on it. But the trick is actually just doing it scared, doing it unknown, doing it as not an expert, right?
Yeah. I think that's pretty often my first piece of advice. So like, obviously people aren't like banging on my door asking for my advice, but whenever I do get anybody asking like, hey, like, what would you say to somebody kind of first getting going or starting their business? And I'm just like, just start. Mm-hmm. Just don't like really think about it too much. Don't plan. Just like say, I want to start an eyewear company, and go find somebody who's making sunglasses in overseas and get the product, and then get it here, and then be like, okay, now how do I sell this? And then just start banging on doors and posting on social media and just like doing stuff that you're absolutely completely unqualified to do. And that's where I think like it ties into parenting too, is like, nobody's qualified to be a parent.
Right.
And a lot of people that I know who I'm like, you are naturally a nurturer. You are naturally good with children. That's not me. I feel like I am fairly nurturing, and I think I'm an okay dad, but just like trying it and doing it and not really thinking too much about it, and asking for help when you need help. Mm-hmm. That's a big part of like this, like being an entrepreneur, is not thinking that you have to do everything alone, and knowing that there's a lot of resources and there's a lot of people whose door is always open for you. And they're obviously, I see these people online all the time being like when somebody asks for advice, like, I don't give away free advice. Like, okay, like be miserable, I guess. I don't like it. It's just, that side of the business world actually really irritates me, because I don't think there's a single person who, if they asked me for help on I guess the things that I'm an expert at, if they ask me for help on social media, or if they ask me for help on sourcing product or product design, or like kind of like guerrilla marketing, that kind of stuff. There's not a single person I would open my contacts to or try and make a connection for, or just teach myself how to do it and give them a little bit of my time to do it. And that's something I'm really kind of passionate about, and something that irritates me often about the way that some people decide to do business, and that's the way they do it. And I don't necessarily, never mind. I was going to say, I don't think of them differently. I do. Maybe I get a little bit judgmental in that, right? But yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right though. That is a really cool part of, well, okay. So I'm in this conversation, like thinking of all of the, the comparables, I guess, between entrepreneurship, business ownership, and parenting. And like, that's so true even with that too, because like how you said, no one is qualified to go into it. You just like start.
Absolutely not.
And then all of
there's not a soul who's just
learning.
upfront qualified to be a business owner. Nobody is.
Exactly.
Now, and I'm sure when you started your business, you were just like, I don't freaking know. I'm just this is something I want to do, and something I'm going to do. I don't know.
Yep, I'll just Google each new step along the way.
YouTube.
Yeah, seriously. Well, I think that's so important to understand, because even in so what was I going to say about this? Even in entrepreneurship, when we're looking at that and we're like, getting started and we're starting the different processes, I don't think there's anyone in this entire world. I mean, if there is, I haven't met them, and like, not that I've met even close to everyone in the world, but I've never heard of someone who started their first business or started their first venture and they were just an absolute expert right from the get-go. Yeah. Right. Every single one of us learns through experience, through failures, through pivoting, through different things like that. And I think that's the same with just about, everything in our lives. The difference is those who search out opportunities to fail so that they can learn, right? And they can.
I think probably my favorite thing and I don't know who coined this phrase. I think I see it often, but I think probably the best piece of business advice that I hear kind of somewhat often on the internet, not that the internet's a great place, but is to fail and fail fast. Mm-hmm. Like fail as quickly as you can and learn and move on. That's probably the best piece of advice in life generally, is just to like test things and fail, and then test it again and fail again, and until it kind of works itself out. And there are things that I am failing at now that I was failing at when I started my business. Mm-hmm. And so you're not just going to have everything figured out. Even I started my eyewear company 3 years ago. I started my media company 4 years ago, or whatever it was, kind of whenever I can quantify it like that, starting, because it was kind of random. But like fail quickly, and that's the main way to learn. And that's like, I think that there's value in formal education when it comes to entrepreneurship, but what's a lot more valuable is just like starting your business and failing, and you'll learn lessons so much faster that way than you would going to any school ever. Yeah. I just have my associate's degree. And I don't have it from a prestigious college, but I have a business partner who has an MBA. And when he first told me he had an MBA, I was like, oh dang, I just kind of had this like thing clicked in my mind. I was like, you must be a business guru. And he was like, absolutely not. He got his MBA from Utah State, and he was like, you starting your business the way you did, more than I do. And like the best thing I got out of having an MBA was the fact that I can go get paid by corporations a little bit more, and a couple good friends. And that was pretty much it. But if you want to learn business, just start a business and start failing. Yeah. Start failing quickly.
That's funny. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Okay. I didn't mean to jump around with this, but I just remembered what I was going to say about what you mentioned. And then we'll kind of like, wrap this up, because this has been a lot of really good points. But cool. When you mentioned that if someone were to come to you and ask for advice on something that you are, skilled at,
my DMs are opened.
Right.
Open. Absolutely wide open.
Yeah. And I think that's true for just about any individual and any entrepreneur, and anyone who has any passion for what it is that they're doing. And the comparison I was going to make is like, when I think about, parenting, when there's things that I'm not sure of, the first people that I go to are those who have done it before, that have experienced it before. Right.
Absolutely.
But what I was going to say is, the same thing with that. I was, I had just thought about this. I was speaking at an event, a virtual event over the weekend, and the individuals who were running the event were some students of mine who have started businesses from different things that they've learned through the institute that I coach with. And it was so cool and such an awesome feeling to see that happening based on information that you're just like so happy to share, right? And I think that's like what the point that I'm trying to make with this is, like, we give ourselves as human beings, we give ourselves so many reasons not to do things, right? To be scared, not to reach out, not to talk to someone about something, not to ask questions, whatever, right?
Yeah.
But if you take anything from this, and even as a reminder to myself, flip that script, because 9 times out of 10, when I have pushed myself to try something, or I step outside of my comfort zone and just like ask or just say something, right? Or just bring it up, or even just start talking about the crazy idea that I have.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, what happens is like the best case scenario, right?
Yeah.
And anyways, that just reminded me what you were talking about with that. It just reminded me, as that second level, to not be afraid to put that aside and just, ask for the different things. Because same thing on my side. Like I'm so excited when people ask me, specific questions about things. I'm like, yes, I love talking about this. Let's go, let's dive in,
I say often that, like, whenever I make like videos or anything, I'm like, if you want to talk about business ideas, or if you just kind of want to like work out what you're thinking and kind of just use me as a sounding wall, please like reach out to me. And some of the worst business, I've talked a lot about the best business advice that I've ever heard. The worst business advice that I've ever heard is to keep your ideas to yourself, because you're like afraid someone's going to steal them. Freaking no one's going to steal your idea. Odds are your idea is not good enough to steal. And oftentimes the ideas that I come up with suck. So, but when I'm like, and oftentimes my wife hears a business pitch on the daily, 1 or 2 of them probably, of me just being like, oh, I just thought of this idea. And sometimes she's like, that was garbage. And sometimes she's like, oh, that's kind of interesting. I like that. and she's definitely my better half. But like, if you have an idea and you're thinking of something, obviously there is something to be said for not just like throwing it out there into the public, but like go talk to some people you trust about it. And that's the best way to like quickly work out a business idea, whether it's good or whether it's bad. Talk to a mentor, talk to a teacher, talk to a friend, talk to your wife or your husband, and or talk to your kid if they're old enough to understand you. Or sometimes if they don't understand you, that's actually better, because then you can just like start talking and they just mumble and say whatever random things that kids say. But be like open about your ideas and put them out there. As soon as you think about them, either write them down or tell them to somebody, and just start like working through the kinks of the idea. Just because ideas are complex, and they'll get even more complex as they work themselves out. But
that's such great advice. That's really great advice. I won't even add anything.
Worst advice ever is to not talk about your ideas. It's so bad.
Really though, because well, and also too, like, okay, I want your thoughts on this before we do wrap up.
Yeah.
Don't you feel like when you have that idea, or when you start to feel like the excitement behind it, that's when it has the most momentum? And when you can start to find like you're excited about it. Some might call this hyperfixation.
Sure. We both experienced that, I'm sure.
Like when you're super excited about it and it seems like there's, oh man, like here's a solution for this piece, or here's how I would do this, or wow, this person was talking about something that goes exactly with this idea that I was having, right? And it just seems to like, it's almost like the universe conspires to bring it all into your reality. But really, like, in a way, that is kind of what's happening, is it's what's important to you. And so your perception is picking those things out, right? But in your experience, have you felt like, talking about things and especially, and I like that you said talking to people that you trust, right? Getting that out in front of there. What has been your experience with that?
Yeah, I wouldn't always just talk to a stranger, but I like I said, the three people the people that I probably trust the most here that are living on Earth are like my wife, number one, and then my parents, my mom and dad, and then a couple like business partners. And they're the people that hear about my crazy ideas first.
Yeah.
And often, like I said, oftentimes they're like, that's insane. What that has no legs. Just like, so let's stop this train of thought quickly. And oftentimes that's good advice. But then like, it's a good way to just like get your mind going. And you're right. Like as soon as you have an idea, that's when the excitement kind of sets in, and that's when you have momentum. So act on it, probably one of the saddest things to hear is when people are like, oh, I had that idea for Uber like 30 years ago. It's like, you might have had the idea. Yeah. Like, I don't doubt that. Like somebody had that idea before Uber did. Somebody had the idea for, Venmo before Venmo did. Somebody had the idea for Tesla before Elon Musk did. And there's a lot of ideas that happen and that just kind of go away. And it's important to like if you're excited about something, set it into motion immediately. Just like get the wheels going. Whatever. People do stuff that is a complete waste of time every single day. I still do stuff that's a waste of time every day. So stop doing stuff that is not good for your future and start filling it with like, either, obviously there's a lot of good things to fill it with, but from an entrepreneur's perspective, fill it with like the ideation phase of things. And that's what I absolutely love, the like ideas and strategy and just like coming up with like new ways to do things. That's what I'm really passionate about. So just like set it into motion, start doing it, and cool. See what happens. And maybe nothing happens. And cool. Maybe 40 years down the road, somebody else does it. And you're like, oh, that sucks. But at least somebody did it. I didn't have the time. I don't know. But like that regret, I fear that every day. That regret of like, oh, I had that idea and now somebody's making millions of dollars off of it. I've heard people say that story 1,000 times. And I just like, I have, and if I don't act on something that I still feel like is a good idea, there's a reason behind it. And if somebody else does it, then I'm like, that's awesome. I'm glad that happened because I had 1,000 other things going on, but I'm glad somebody else had the idea and that's their thing and they can be successful. And now their family's kind of blessed from that. But I've kind of removed that regret by just like acting on things when I have the idea and at least putting them out there.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's super cool. Well, Mike, thank you so much for having this conversation with me. I know that it was, like I said at the beginning, usually we start off these episodes with a specific topic, but we kind of just like dove straight in from the moment.
We talked about all the things that I really like to talk about. So I would say that was a great conversation.
It was a success. Yeah, I feel that way. That's awesome. Cool. Well, tell our listeners where they can connect with you, where they can jump into the DMs.
Yeah.
Ideas off your
slide into those DMs. Instagram is where I really like to be. I have my like kind of new page on Instagram. I started making business content a couple months ago, kind of religiously. And you will not be impressed when you see how many followers I have, and that's okay. And I'm okay with it because I'm making content that I really enjoy and like I can be proud of when I post it. So if you want to work out a business idea, or if you like kind of entrepreneur story kind of content, you can follow me at Wolfe with an E, WOLFE, Michael T. So Wolfe nice. Michael T. Yeah, Michael Wolfe wasn't available. Too common of a name, I guess, but on Instagram and TikTok. Yeah. So that's and you can like I said, my DMs are open. You want to work out an idea? I'm not the kind of person who's going to steal it from you. Like I just want to, I want to see people succeed. And I love seeing people, I love like hearing business ideas and being like, okay, what can we do about this? How is that, like, what's the problem that's being
Yeah.
solved? And like that phase of business, especially when somebody comes to me with an idea and they're passionate about it, I'm like, let's go. I don't even have to be involved in a financial way. I don't have to be an owner of this. I just like want to see this come to fruition and like help other people experience the like joy that I feel now that I work for myself.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Well, thank you so much for jumping on with me. This was super fun. And we'll have to seriously do it again because I'm sure that there's lots of other topics we could.
Yeah, we absolutely will. Congratulations on the pregnancy too. I'm happy for you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, family of 4. We're super excited. Hey, thanks for joining me for another episode of the Marketing Mastermind. If you took away any little golden nuggets or took down a mental note of any pieces that you loved from this episode, it would mean so much to me if you wouldn't mind sharing this with a friend, sharing it on your social media, or if you feel so inclined, rate and review this podcast. That is the best way to show your love and support and to get the podcast out there to more listeners. So I greatly appreciate it from the bottom of my heart, and I will see you on the next episode.